see all the graphics that are included. So let's go ahead and get started. Just-in-time mathematics quick checks are formative assessments that align to the 2016 Mathematics Standards of Learning. These resources, developed by Virginia teachers and mathematics leaders, are designed to help teachers identify students with unfinished learning and assist in planning instruction in potential gaps that they might have, just in time. The VDOE team and today's facilitators recognize that many of you have started school or will soon be starting school totally virtual. The facilitation team has included within the presentation strategies for utilizing the quick checks in a virtual setting. These strategies will be shared with you towards the end of today's presentation. I know you'll be anxious to hear some of those ideas, so hang in there to a little bit later in the presentation. It is my privilege and pleasure now to introduce tonight's webinar facilitators who served on the quick check development team and were instrumental in helping to lead this work. First, Catherine Munson is in her 26th year as an educator and currently serves as an elementary mathematics coach in Henrico County. Before becoming an elementary math coach, she taught kindergarten, first and second grades, and is very excited to spend time with you this evening. Catherine just celebrated her 22nd wedding anniversary. She has a very talented daughter, Madison, who is returning to James Madison University as a sophomore theater major. Catherine isn't sure where Madison got all of her talent, but shares that she's quite certain that it isn't from her. Kim Bender is in her 28th year in education. She's been a classroom teacher, a Title I math teacher, a division mathematics coach, and is currently serving as an instructional designer in Chesterfield County. Kim has been married for 20 years and has two daughters, an 11th grader who is a vocal major at Appomattox Regional Governor's School, and a 9th grader who attends Code RVA. Ladies, we're very excited to have you both leading tonight's webinar and want to thank you for all of your leadership and work throughout this project. We'll now turn the session over to Catherine and Kim, who will provide an overview of the just-in-time quick checks and their potential use in the classroom, as well as strategies for using them in a virtual setting. Catherine, Kim?
Good evening. Hi, this is Catherine, the untalented one. I'm going to quickly go over the agenda. We're going to start by talking about the Recover, Redesign, Restart 2020 guidance document provided by Dr. Lane and the impetus and some of the background knowledge for these just-in-time quick checks. Then Kim is going to talk about when to use the quick checks. I'm going to go over the components of a quick check. Kim and I will both talk about some possible uses of the quick checks, and as Debbie said in the opening, also some virtual ways to use these quick checks if you are starting the year virtually. And then we're going to come back to Debbie to talk about the quick check availability and some other resources provided by the VDOE. We're going to be going through the presentation, and as Debbie said, we're not going to have time to take questions as we're going through, so you can hover over the bottom and get that Q&A feature, type in your questions, and someone from the wonderful VDOE team will answer your questions. We may have time to come back at the end and go over some of the questions that maybe everyone had in common and some common themes. So, the Recover, Redesign, Restart 2020 guidance document. As many of you know, on June 9th, 2020, Governor Northam announced a phased reopening plan for Virginia schools. During this press conference, Dr. Lane, Superintendent of Schools, shared the guidance document, Recover, Redesign, Restart 2020. And when you receive this PowerPoint, if you'd like to, you can click on that link and it will take you to that document. Planning and preparing for instruction and assessment are key components of the guidance provided. Assessment should not be interpreted to mean a testing event, but rather a process of data collection that is ongoing, formative, and low or no stakes. Assessment should include just-in-time formative assessments that inform immediate instructional needs. The VDOE wanted to help you with this, so they came together, and one of the most exciting things to me was the collaborative nature of this project. Mathematics staff from the Office of Student Assessment and the Office of STEM and Innovation at the Virginia Department of Education, along with more than 40 mathematics teachers and leaders throughout Virginia, collaborated to develop just-in-time quick checks. to assist teachers in identifying students' unfinished learning while teaching current grade level content. So what is a quick check? The team came together to create these quick checks as a resource that generally includes 3 or more questions that are each designed to reveal common misconceptions or student errors when learning the content addressed by a standard and bullet. These are on grade level. And as you know, kids are going to do some creative things and they're going to make errors that we've never even dreamed of before. But we tried to really focus on the ones that we thought would be the most common. We're not going to cover everything, but we did try to cover the ones that were most common. Sometimes this is 3 or more, you'll notice. Sometimes it might be 2. Sometimes 2 questions was enough to cover that standard. Sometimes we needed 5 to cover the standard. It just depends on the content. We also tried to keep these very limited multiple choice. You will not see many questions that are multiple choice so that we could really dig into what the students understood about the content. Each mathematics standard and bullet from kindergarten through Algebra 1 will have an associated quick check. Each bullet of a standard has a separate quick check to allow for greater coverage of content.
So how do our quick checks help us with just-in-time instruction? Quick checks allow teachers to re-engage students in the prerequisite knowledge within the context of grade level learning experiences, which means that teachers can remain focused on the learning happening today rather than on how we will catch students up. And we can use just-in-time instruction versus just-in-case instruction. Quick checks also allow teachers to identify the gaps in essential learning and additional scaffolding and support that may be required just in time to learn new content. So again, going back to the idea that rather than filling in, trying to do just in case instruction, I'll teach this in case they missed it, we'll use the quick checks to determine what they missed and give that instruction just in time to learn the new content. And then we'll respond to student needs in real time and in the context of grade level content. So an example of just in case versus just in time. For SOL 3.2a, which is the student will name and write fractions and mixed numbers represented by a model. An example of just in case instruction would be Mrs. Sanchez includes a reteaching lesson on naming and writing fractions, which is SOL 2.4a. By teaching that lesson, Mrs. Sanchez has used an entire class block to teach a lesson that most of her students may already understand. With just-in-time instruction for the same standard, naming and writing fractions and mixed numbers represented by a model, Mr. Rivers identifies students who have unfinished learning by implementing a quick check of content from SOL 2.4a prior to introducing, identifying, and naming fractions and mixed numbers. In this case, Mr. Rivers has used 10 minutes of class time to identify which students need additional reinforcement. So where can you find the just-in-time quick checks? When you go to the VDOE website, the quick checks are located both on the assessment and the instruction pages. So you can go to the Mathematics Standards of Learning and Testing page, or to the Mathematics Instruction page on the VDOE website, and they both contain links to the just-in-time mathematics quick checks. When you get to either of those pages, go through either of those pages, you'll get to this page, which shows you all of the grade levels at the top. You'll click on the grade level, and then you can go down to, it'll take you to that grade level, and within the grade level, all of the quick checks are organized by strand. In this example, we have all of the number and number sense quick checks for grade 3. You'll then choose the desired standard and the bullet within the standard. And as you can see, you can choose to pull up the Word document or a PDF version. Quick checks that are available will be blue and underlined, as you can see in this number and number sense example. Quick checks that are coming soon will be in black text and not hyperlinked because they're coming soon. So, how do we use quick checks? Teachers should use quick checks while teaching current grade level content to identify and access supporting and prerequisite SOLs that are necessary for current learning. They also help teachers consider the most common student errors and misconceptions. As Catherine already said, we only went for the most common student errors. And they help teachers plan for new instruction. Teachers can also use quick checks to quickly assess newly taught content from the current grade level and to quickly identify links to resources that support grade level content. That's one of the great features, is that it gives you the resources that you can use to support the content right there attached to the quick check. How not to use quick checks. Quick checks are not intended to be used as a pre-assessment for a unit or a semester or a course of study. They're not intended for you to combine a bunch of different standards and see how students are prepared for this entire unit. They are not a practice SOL test. They're not a practice packet for independent learning. They weren't designed to be put together and give students multiple opportunities for practice. They're not meant to be a graded assignment or a quiz or any other sort of grade. And they are not a tool for determining course placement.
So next we're going to get into the components of a quick check. And you can see the quick check in the chat box. If you hover over, you'll see the chat box. And as Debbie mentioned, make sure that you download this one. It does have graphics. And if you're looking in the preview version, all the graphics will not come through and the questions probably will not make sense to you. So I'll give you just a second to kind of maneuver into the chat box and to download that assessment. We're going to be looking at 3.2B. Okay, as you're downloading, I'm going to talk about some of the components of a quick check. Each quick check contains links to the curriculum framework for your grade level, questions designed to reveal possible students' errors and misconceptions, again, the most common ones, teacher notes for each question, which I think is really powerful. You'll have teacher notes telling you possible misconceptions and ways to reteach or remediate based on those misconceptions, supporting resources, and supporting and prerequisite SOL. So quick check 3.2B. Each component offers a unique element of support of the content of the standard. And as I was saying before, what's so cool about this is from kindergarten to Algebra 1, no matter which quick check you pick up, all of these components are going to be the same. So I think that's really exciting. If you look at the top of your quick check for 3.2B, you're going to see this standard of learning SOL. That's the link you can click on, and that will take you to directly to your grade 3 curriculum math framework. And I like that because we're looking at SOL 3.2B, but let's say I'm not sure what A said. So I can go right back and read what the SOL says for 3.2A as well. It's also going to tell you the strand. This is a number and number sense. It's going to tell you about the standard and the bullets. So you can see that the standard is the students will represent fractions and mixed numbers with models and symbols. And then you can look down at those specific grade level skills to get more information about this standard. Next, as you're going through the quick check, you'll see these hyperlinks to the just-in-time quick check. That's a bookmark. If you click that link, it's going to take you right down to the student questions. If you click on the just-in-time quick check teacher notes, that's going to take you right down to the teacher notes that talk about, again, the common misconception and how you can remediate or reteach to those misconceptions or errors. After that, you get to one of my most exciting parts. I keep saying that everything is exciting and I love everything about this document, but I find this very powerful. If you're like me, a lot of people make fun of all the different tabs I have open on my computer, and a lot of them are often the VDOE tabs. They're all here in one place. It's one stop, so I won't have to have all of my tabs open. It will take you to the MIPS, the math instructional plans, if there's some that support that SOL. If there's a co-teaching MIP, it would also be here. This particular SOL does not have a co-teaching MIP, so we don't see it, but if we had one, it'd be here. It takes you to the word wall cards, and the developer of this quick check put the list there of all the word wall cards they thought would be relevant for this SOL. If there is an instructional video for teachers, it is also located here. So let's say you're not quite sure on how all the different models of fractions, you can click on that video and it will show you how to model the fractions for grades 3 through 8. It will take you to the mathematics student performance analysis questions. So if you want to go back and see that and see where some other common misconceptions that came on the previous SOL test, it'll be there. If there is a Desmos activity, you can see it is linked in here, and that's fractions on a number line. And I know a lot of my K1 2 teachers might not be as familiar with Desmos, and that's okay. You can learn, it's very friendly, and this takes you right to the Desmos activity site. Also, if there was a performance task that was relevant, it would be linked here too. So again, I think this is really cool because everything is right there. Kim is going to talk a little bit about planning. And I think this just is a wonderful resource for planning because it's all there together. When you meet with your team or you're planning by yourself, it's all there for you. It's also going to have the next spot is the supporting and prerequisite SOL. So again, the quick check for 3.2a is linked there. If you press that link, it'll take you and you can see what the questions are for 3.2a. If you are like my county, fractions was one thing that we had not taught before having to go home last year for staying at home. So I could click on 2.4a and 2.4b to see what they would have been expected to know in second grade as well, and what some possible misconceptions for second grade would be. The quick checks for supporting and prerequisite SOLs are linked to each grade level quick check. So that's a really cool feature of all of the quick checks.
So there are several different uses for the quick checks. We're going to run through a few scenarios, 4 different scenarios, and then we'll also talk about how you could use it virtually. So the first scenario is planning. As in planning, a group of grade 3 teachers is planning together. They're preparing to teach Standard of Learning 3.2b. The group accesses the quick check for 3.2b on the VDOE website. The quick check provides them with quick access to the knowledge and the skills expected at grade 3. It also gives them the supporting and prerequisite knowledge for this standard and the skills expected from previous grade levels. As you can see in the picture here, Quick Check 3.2b provides immediate access to the grade 3 curriculum framework. It's linked up at the top, the standard, and then the bullets for 3.2b. And then to determine what students should have learned in grade 2, the teachers, as they're planning, select the link to the grade 2 prerequisite SOL, 2.4b, A, and 2.4b. And they use the links that are right there on the quick check for 3.2b. And the quick checks for 2.4a and 2.4b reveal that in grade 2, students learn to name and write fractions represented by a set, region, or length model. Those quick checks for 2.a and 2.4b, 2.4a and 2.4b also revealed that in grade 2, student expectations were limited to proper fractions, including halves, fourths, and eighths, and thirds and sixths. This information helps the grade 3 teachers know that students have not had formal experiences with mixed numbers or all denominators 12 or less. So this information will be new to students. In scenario 2, the teachers can use quick checks for identifying supporting SOLs from prior grade levels. Mrs. Lovings is teaching SOL 3.2b, and she notices that some standards are consistently demonstrating errors or some students, sorry, are consistently demonstrating errors or misconceptions in their understanding. So she selects the link to Quick Check 2.4b, and she accesses the grade 2 questions by clicking on the bookmark for just-in-time Quick Check. She uses some of these questions to help her identify areas of unfinished learning for these students. So she bases which question she uses in this case on the errors and misconceptions that she's seen her students make on the 3rd grade content. Mrs. Lovings decides to use questions 1 and 3 from Quick Check 2.4b with her students to help her better identify student misconceptions about proper fractions with an area model. Question 1 will reveal whether these students can create an area model to represent a proper fraction. So as you can see in this example, they start with a model and they're given triangles and they're asked to make a model that shows 4/6. So they start with the model of the whole. They are creating the fraction to match the written fraction. And then they use the picture below to show the model they made. Mrs. Lovings will be able to see how students decide to model 4/6 and whether they do it accurately. Question 3 will reveal whether students are able to model fractions by creating equal-sized parts. So they're given paper strips at the bottom of the page and asked to cut them out. Then they make a model for each of the fractions shown by folding and then shading in the fractional part. And then the students glue or tape each model next to the fraction name. Responses to question 3 will reveal several things: whether students understand the numerator and denominator, and Mrs. Lovings will know whether students understand that fractions should be equal parts. For example, folding the bar in half should create 2 equal parts.
So now I'm going to talk about some ways that we can use the quick checks for formative assessment. Mr. Sellers introduced SOL 3.2b to his students yesterday and discussed modeling fractions with an area model. He wants to provide a quick check warm-up activity at the start of class to see if the students understand modeling improper fractions. He uses the just-in-time quick check from 3.2b and selects question 1 for his warm-up activity. This circle represents one whole. Draw a model to show 7/4. Student responses will help Mr. Sellers know which students need additional support understanding and representing improper fractions. So again, as Kim said at the beginning, this isn't meant to be given as a whole. We're not giving them the whole paper at one time. While sometimes that might be appropriate, but you can see how we could just quickly take one question from the quick check and use that as a quick formative assessment. Mr. Sellers decides to use question 4 at the conclusion of his lesson to determine whether all students are able to add tick marks between whole numbers on a given number line to represent proper and improper fractions. So in this question, the locations of 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3 are labeled on this number line. On the same number line, label the location of 1/3 and the location of 5/3. Mr. Sellers uses this question to assess whether students have a better understanding of fractions on a number line following his lesson. So in my mind, I see that Mr. Sellers, before this unit, during planning, pulled up the quick check. He looked at the teacher notes. He saw there was a common misconception on this number line that sometimes kids would look at that. A lot of times 3rd grade students, and as we saw when Kim pulled up the 2nd grade, they only have to do proper fractions. They don't have to do improper fractions. So a lot of times their experiences coming into third grade, they've only seen 0 to 1 number line. They've never seen one that has 0 to 3. So they might have some misconceptions coming in, and a lot of times they might place the 1/3 on the 3 because it has a 3, or they'll look at the 1 and they'll place it there 1 out of 3 because they're not looking at the number line. They're looking at the whole as 0 to 3, if that makes sense. So Mr. Sellers will save question number 2 to use when the class is focusing on fractions of a set. So you can see this set of triangles is one whole. Draw a model of 2 and 2, 6. So again, he's not giving the quick check in one setting. He's being very strategic. On the day that he's doing the area model, he used the area one. When he did the number line, he used the number line. And when he's going to save this for the fractions of a set. So this question, the circle is one whole. Each part of the circle is exactly the same size. Each of these pieces is a fractional part of the circle. Write an addition sentence to show the sum of these fractional parts. Mr. Sellers is going to save this question and use it at a later time when he teaches that concept. So pre-assessment. So I was just kind of informative. We talked about how we could use those questions during and after instruction, because formative, remember these quick checks are written on grade level. So those were third grade questions. For pre-assessment, we don't expect third graders to come in knowing the third grade content. So we can look to the second grade content to look for some pre-assessment questions. So again, that's a really cool feature of having that prerequisite SOL link right there. You can click on it and get to those second grade questions. So Mrs. Byers is concerned that students may have gaps in prior learning due to time missed from school. She plans to introduce SOL 3.2b today, but wants to determine if her students' prior knowledge of, her students' prior knowledge of fractions. So as a bell ringer or warm up, she uses a question from Quick Check 2.4a. Write the fraction for each picture. What fraction of a circle is shaded gray? Mrs. Byers uses question 1 to determine whether students can name and write fractions represented by an area model. So again, this can be before instruction, very quickly. Do they understand this concept? And so she can find out, she might have been worried that they didn't know, but she sees that most of her class does in fact know how to name this. So maybe there's a handful that don't. She can pull them for a small group, and she doesn't have to worry about just in case. She can do just in time instruction. There's also this question, look at the model, circle the model if all the parts are equal, draw an X on the model if its parts are not equal. And this is one image, but there's several images that go with this question. And Mrs. Byers uses question 2 to determine whether students can identify equal parts, because we have seen many third graders that will look at that, and even though it's not equal parts, they'll say, yep, that's in thirds. They don't understand the idea that it has to be equal parts. So, my favorite, the fraction of a set. Write the fraction of this set that is shaded black. This question reveals whether students can name and write fractions represented by a set model. So again, we can give this as a bell ringer, a warm up, and if all of our students know it, or a majority of them, we don't have to worry about going back and reviewing this. They know it, we can move on with our just-in-time instruction. Mrs. Byers uses Quick Check 2.4a to gauge the amount of background knowledge her students have as they are introduced to the new content in SOL 3.2b. These questions also provide opportunities to reactivate prior learning and help students recall the fraction concepts, because sometimes it's just a case of, we haven't used it all summer, but as soon as they see the question, it kind of reactivates and they're like, oh yeah, I remember how to do this. So in less than 10 minutes, she has gained much information about her students.
Okay, teacher notes. This is one of my favorite aspects of the quick checks, because they give teachers ideas on what errors we were anticipating students would make, what misconceptions we were anticipating, and ideas on what to do with them. So this link takes the user to a copy of the questions, along with an explanation of students' most common errors and misconceptions. Again, we've mentioned it twice already, but we'll say it again, that we did not attempt to get every error or every misconception. But we tried to get the most common ones and then help understand what that might show us. These notes also may include suggestions for helping students clarify the concept. They can also be particularly useful for teachers as they assess student understanding and provide feedback. This is an example of one of the questions that Catherine shared earlier. The locations of 0, 1, 2, and 3 are labeled on the number line, and the students are supposed to label 1/3 and 5/3. And as you can see in the student notes below, it talks about one possible misconception, which would be students thinking that the 0, 1, 2, and 3 mark the 3 parts of thirds. So the 1 would be 1/3, the 2 would be 2/3, the 3 would be 3/3. So students might write 1/3 below the 1 that's already there, or they might use the 1 that's already there as part of 1/3. And so then it talks about how students might benefit from adding tick marks between the whole numbers on a given number line to create the equal fractional parts that the students will need. And then it talks also about how students need experience with number lines that go past just the whole, or that go past the amount of numbers that they'll need. And I know I'm guilty of this often. If they need to go to 5/3, we only have the number line go to 2. We don't give them examples where the number line goes way past where they need, and they have to determine where it is. Ideas for using quick checks in a virtual environment. There are a lot of different ways that you can use them. We tried to stick to virtual ideas that would be open to just about anyone. You can have students complete their work and then submit a picture using your school division's learning management system. So in that example, you would be displaying the question, students would be doing their work on a piece of paper, and then they would submit a picture of their work using your management system. A similar thing would be to have if you use Google Slides, you could share Google Slide with the whole class. They could you could display the questions, they could submit a picture to their given slide in the Google slideshow. You could post the question on your shared screen, have them do the work on paper or a small whiteboard, and then just hold the work up for you to see it on the screen. You can have students create a Flipgrid video explaining how they solved a particular problem. Students can use the whiteboard feature of Flipgrid to show their work. Another option is to have students show their work for each problem on Google Jamboard, which provides a free whiteboard. So Jamboard is an extension for Google, and it gives you a whiteboard where students can show their work. And then another option is to use the Desmos activity builder, which allows you to create almost a guided experience for students. So you could put the questions into the activity builder and students can show their work right in the activity builder.
So one that we didn't list, but is also a free resource, well, there's a free version of it, Nearpod. Nearpod has a free version and they have a paid version, but you can use the free version, has a lot of features, and we are putting my county, Henrico County, is putting a lot of our quick checks into the Nearpod. And just like Kim said, it has a draw feature where the kids can draw or they can upload a picture. And as someone who spent the last week putting several of these into the Nearpod, a lot of the questions go very nicely. More questions go in nicely than don't. The one that Kim shared about the paper folding, obviously we can't put paper folding in there, but most of the questions can translate very nicely to that online environment.
Right, Catherine, thank you for sharing those ideas. So I'm going to jump in now and talk a little bit about when the quick checks will be available. The ladies, I think, have already mentioned some that there has already been one round of quick checks uploaded to the web page, and the second round has either been uploaded today or will be uploaded tomorrow. And quick checks will continue to be uploaded throughout the rest of this month into September, and we anticipate that all of the quick checks will be completely uploaded by the middle of September. This was a quick turnaround project, as these ladies will agree with. Our developers and our lead folks really worked hard to get these in quickly. And I have just added to the chat box the link that will take you to the web page with all of the quick checks listed there. But recall that they shared, if the quick check is listed in blue, that means that the link is live and you would be able to click there and get to the quick check. If the quick check is still in black font, then it has not, the final has not been uploaded yet, and you're not able to access it yet. Someone did ask whether all of the grade levels would have quick checks available, and the kindergarten through Algebra 1 are currently available, and we are looking at whether or not we could make develop some for geometry and Algebra 2. So that news is forthcoming. We're taking a look at that, and we'll let folks know. But for right now, quick checks are available for every bullet, not just every standard, but every bullet for each standard. And they are currently at this location, the site that I've shared with you. In addition, you'll find the PowerPoint presentation at that same location. Okay, so there is something new also that goes along with this project that we wanted to share with you. And I'm going to put a link in the chat box. There's a Google form where we're asking you if you would be interested in joining a users group. So let me tell you a little bit about that. So during this next school year, we are going to ask a group of Virginia mathematics teachers to consider providing feedback based on the quick checks, based on their use of the quick checks with students in their classrooms. So this group of folks would agree to participate in several webinars throughout the school year. They would utilize the quick checks with their students. And so we would expect a certain number to be used, and more information would be shared at a little bit later date. But this is just sort of some initial information to pique your interest and see if you would like to maybe participate. So we're asking for feedback to be provided on how you use the quick check. What were your experiences? Is there anything you would change about the quick check? But just giving us some good feedback on their use. And so as a result, those folks who are selected to be a part of this users group would receive a small stipend for their participation. So if you think you might be interested, go ahead and use that link in the chat box. It's the Google form link for the user group opportunity. And you would include your name and email and the information that is asked for there. And we would send an email to you in a couple of weeks once all of the details are worked out, and give you more information. And then you would decide, or could decide at that point, whether or not you wanted to commit to a project such as that. We have had a very good amount of interest. So unfortunately, we already kind of know that we might not be able to take everyone, but we would like to take as many as we can because we really value the feedback from teachers using these within the field. So please consider that and click on the link and add your information if you think you might be interested. So before we close out today's session, we just want to take a moment to say thank you to all of those teachers and mathematics leaders from around the state who served as developers or lead developers and helping the DOE team to create the quick checks. These are really going to serve as a resource, not only during this unprecedented time, but also in the future. These don't have a limit. They're not just for this COVID-related closure and special virtual atmosphere that we have going on right now. But we anticipate that these will be used far into the future. This group of folks worked so hard during about 6 weeks of their summer, the time that they were supposed to have off, to help create documents and quick checks that you'd be able to use with your students. So we just want to give them a shout out. Several are on the webinar tonight, and we just wanted to say thank you so much for that. So the next slide shows some of the resources that the math leaders have used, the DOE folks have used during the Math Lead webinars this spring and into the summer. We wanted to share these because we felt that they might be useful in supporting your work as you begin the new school year. So they are there. And as I mentioned earlier, the link to the Quick Check webpage with the PowerPoints have been uploaded. So you can find them on that webpage as well. So we thank you for your time today. We are going to open the floor for a few minutes of questions, and we'll ask Kristen and Holly if there's anything that we should address whole group. But we do want to just say thank you to our facilitators today, and give you a chance to ask any lingering questions that you might have before we close out. So there was a question about virtual manipulatives, because we all know that our students don't necessarily have the same manipulatives we might use at home. So we are going to go ahead and let Kim and Catherine address that, and then we'll ask Holly if there are other questions that we might want to address with the whole group.
There are several websites that offer virtual manipulatives, and one of the great ways to do it is have the students do the work on the template that they provide for the virtual manipulatives, and then take a screenshot, and they can submit it through Google Slides, your LMS, whatever different system you have in place. Someone in the chat mentioned Class Dojo as an option. I know nothing about that, but I'll believe them that it's an option. And so you can take a picture, a screenshot of the manipulatives from there are several different ones out there, so I won't name any of them because I don't want to play favorites, but there's a bunch of options. Another thing somebody asked about was can this be done in Canvas? We have Canvas, and one of the options that we did was I started playing around with Google Slides. You can put it on a Google slide and do each question separately as an assignment, and it's very easy for the student to do the work on the slide or to do an audio recording, much like Flipgrid would allow them to do an audio recording for free.
And so I'll just jump back into Canvas and Schoology are similar. We are using Schoology, and just like Kim said, I talked about Nearpod, we're uploading the link to the Nearpod into Schoology so the students can do it and then turn it back into us. And there's an audio feature there, and also you can take a screenshot and upload it. When you do draw it, the kids can upload their picture. They can also draw. It's a really cool feature. And then they can turn it through the learning management system. And just like Kim said, if you Google virtual pattern blocks, you'll get virtual pattern blocks. There are lots of different free resources out there.
And one of the other cool features about Nearpod, I just watched a practice lesson with it, and the teacher had the students submitted their work, and then you can put up a screen that shows several different students' work, so the students can discuss the different ways. You can have them discuss how it's solved and what they agree and disagree with, which I thought was a cool way to take it from assessing to instruction.
Good. Holly, did you see some other questions that you wanted